I'm Anjanette Levy, and I'm coming to you live from the Latah County Courthouse in Moscow, Idaho. This is where Bryan Kohberger appeared in court just a little while ago today. He was arraigned on the 4 murder charges and 1 count of burglary in the November 2022 murders of Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle, those 4 University of Idaho students who were stabbed to death in their house off campus. We are taking your questions this hour, so submit those to us on Twitter, YouTube, and on Facebook, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. And we've got some great questions coming in as usual, so thanks to everybody for watching and for sending in your questions. Let's send this first one to you, Linda. Where's the murder weapon? Will the roommates who lived be taking the stand to testify? And this question comes from Robert Sudano.
Well, Anjanette, let's take the latter one first. I assume the roommates will be taking the stand to testify, although the prosecution can make an election to decide not to put them on the stand on the basis they don't need them to tell the story of what happened that night. So that's a decision that could only be made after we see the evidence that the prosecution has. Where's the murder weapon? That is the best question out there, isn't it? That's the one the prosecution wants to know the answer to. That's what they want to find in that path. Remember the tangled path where the car went through forests and all afterwards? Mm-hmm. Obviously, somewhere out there that if Bryan Kohberger is the killer, only he knows where it is stashed.
And that's right. They recovered the knife sheath, which they said was right next to Maddie's body, the K-bar knife sheath. The knife, though, to our knowledge, has not been recovered. There's a gag order, so we don't know if they have recovered it, and we wouldn't know had they actually found the murder weapon at this point in time. Let's go to our next one. Anyone know the motive? This is from Michael Plauchi from YouTube. Florina, do we know the motive in this case?
Well, if we believe that the defendant is also the online person who's been making comments, then he made the comment that this was a sexually motivated crime. I am not aware of evidence to support that any of the victims were sexually assaulted, but certainly with this gag order, whatever discovery is out there has not been disclosed. It is possible, I suspect, that he had some sort of obsession, some sort of online stalking situation with one of the victims, and that this just manifested into him potentially being one of these killers that is so arrogant and so educated that he almost wants to see if he could get away with this, and does it to see where he could go.
And I want to throw something in there, Florina. We do know that the victims were not sexually assaulted. They said that early on. It's been months and months, but the autopsy did not reveal any signs of sexual assault. However, psychologists will tell you that that doesn't mean that a crime wasn't sexually motivated. There can be a sexual component even if there is no sexual assault. So that would be getting really into the weeds, a topic from another time, but I thought I would just throw that out there. Let's get to our next question. Heads will roll from YouTube. Have they seriously looked into previous places he was at college, high school, and any similar unsolved or similar murders? Ben Chu, I will send that question to you.
It's a great question. I'm quite certain that the prosecutors have done that and will continue to do that to see, because past can well be prologue, especially when it doesn't appear, although we're not sure from the gag order, but it doesn't appear that they have, the murder weapon. I think the less tangible evidence they have, the more likely they will go in looking for clues as to his past conduct.
And we do know that they have kind of gone poking around a little bit in that realm in his past classes in college. He was at DeSales University taking a class with Catherine Ramsland, who specializes in serial killers. So you can bet that they are looking into all of those things to see if there were any red flags back then. And we do know, I'll just add to that, Ben, that they have looked at some other cases in Pennsylvania, and I've been told they have not turned up anything where it looked like Bryan Kohberger was involved. So just wanted to throw that out there. Heather N. from YouTube, if found guilty and DP is on the table, death penalty, would there be a sentencing trial? Linda, tell us how that works when there's a conviction and the death penalty is on the table.
Okay, so let's start first when it's a possibility and it hasn't gotten there yet. The defense team actually has started already on the mitigation phase of this trial, even though they don't know whether the prosecutor will pick a death penalty avenue, because they assume that the prosecutor will, like the rest of us do. So just as we've seen in trial, you have a guilt phase, which must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Obviously, the prosecution will bear that burden. And if convicted, there will be a penalty phase where, depending on the specific law, but generally it's all the same, whether there's aggravating factors that will be presented, and the aggravating factors could actually be the prosecutor getting up and just saying, you heard the aggravating factors at trial, it's A, B, C, and D, there's multiple murders, there's torture here, there's stabbings, et cetera, et cetera. And then the defense presents evidence of what may have caused him to do this that may be not his fault. You know, we saw in Florida someone in the womb who was basically intoxicated with drugs and alcohol. And they'll try to put forward things that are mitigating factors that don't have to be proven but have to be accepted by the jury. And then the jury individually weighs by themselves. One person individually can say, I don't believe that the mitigating factors outweigh the aggravating factors, and therefore there's death, or I believe that the mitigating factors do outweigh the aggravating factors as proven by the prosecution, and I can't put him to death. So it could be one person who says no death penalty, and that's where it lay.
All right. Our next question comes from Amanda Montalvo from YouTube. Question, why didn't the roommate call 911 right away? Florina, that's kind of like the $64,000 question in this case. Why the roommate saw somebody walking through her home, went back into her room, apparently she was freaked out and scared, and didn't call 911 for 7 more hours.
I think, and I can tell you as a former prosecutor where I've had victims who didn't immediately report, we really don't know how we're going to react in a scary, shocking situation until we're in that situation, and not everyone reacts the same way. Shock and being scared can freeze people. We don't know exactly what was going through her head at the time. It's possible that she was so scared that she didn't know what to do. It's also possible this is at a time where she's living with multiple other roommates and just isn't sure what she saw exactly. And I think that's going to be fodder for a really good cross-examination of this witness should the prosecution put her on the stand, because the defense will, of course, point out that this person cannot identify the defendant, that this person was not concerned enough to report this immediately, and that this person at the time had doubt about whether or not a crime had even occurred, because if they knew for sure a crime had occurred, why didn't they call immediately? And the reason, of course, is because people react differently and people can freeze in scary situations.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, we never know how we're going to react in any of these situations. Nobody does. And we need to keep in mind, these are college kids. I mean, we don't know what was going on that night. We do know some of them were out partying, as college kids do. So any number of things could have happened. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll check back in with you after the break. We'll be back. We are coming to you live from the Latah County Courthouse in Moscow, Idaho. I'm Anjanette Levy, and you are watching Law and Crime.